So I shall be speaking on the workup of dry eye disease and how it has changed over time. So the aim of any workup of dry eye disease is to establish the presence of the dry eye in the patient, to categorize the type of dry eye or classify and determine the etiology or risk factors. So who all should undergo a dry eye workup? So people with symptoms of ocular discomfort, which is a wide term to include dryness, eye fatigue, burning sensation, vague discomfort. In some specific groups of people like postmenopausal women, especially those who are on HRT, and also people who are working on video display terminals, because nowadays we have so many people on video display units. Then people working in environment where there is high flow, and or there is people living in air conditioning. Then the third group of patients are those who have specific ocular diseases like meibomian gland dysfunction, after viral conjunctivitis, chronic allergic conjunctivitis, filamentary keratitis, patients on glaucoma medication, or after chemical and thermal injury, or after refractive surgery, and contact lens wearers. These are also candidates. And if you have some systemic diseases like ocular graft host junction disease, Sjogren's disease, vasculitis. So they are also candidates for dry eye workup. So what does the workup entail? So the steps in the workup are very simple. They entail a triage where you differentiate dry eye from the other conditions. Secondly, the risk factors of dry eye disease, which Dr. Deepshikha had shown a very nice slide. Then the presence of dry eye disease, and fourthly, to categorize the dry eye disease. So the first step is triage. You need to ask questions. And what are these questions? So these questions are, the first question that you ask is, how severe is the discomfort? Usually dry eye discomfort is mild or moderate, but if there is severe pain, it usually means that it can be either because of infection, ulceration, or trauma. Very rarely will severe dry eye cause severe pain. Dry eye mouth, this is a trigger question to rule out Sjogren's disease. Then you need to ask if how long the symptoms have lasted, if there's any triggering factor. If it is acute onset, it is usually because of infection, ulceration, and trauma, while dry eye disease symptoms are chronic and insidious. And whether, if there is blurred vision, and if it improves on blinking. If it improves on blinking, it is usually dry eye disease. And if it does not improve on blinking, it may be other causes. Then other symptoms are redness much worse in one eye. If it is unilateral, we need to rule out infection, ulceration, or trauma. Dry eye disease is usually bilateral. It may be asymmetric, more in one eye, less in the other. If the eyes itch, then it is usually we need to rule out blepharitis or allergic conjunctivitis. If patients are on contact lens, then it can cause contact lens induced discomfort, which is a total different subject, and that can also lead to symptoms mimicking dry eye disease. Or if there is some systemic diseases, or if patients are on any drugs, the list of which was shown by the previous speaker. So these are triage questions. This will differentiate people who may be dry eye than people who may not be dry eye. So these are the risk factors. It has already been shown once. So we need to rule out the postmenopausal women and just give a general look at the patient. Things like swan neck deformities or a very dry mouth will usually point towards Sjogren's or secondary Sjogren's disease. So how do you establish dry eye disease? The definition says that dry eye disease is related to ocular symptoms. The tear film is unstable and hyperosmolar, and there is ocular surface inflammation and damage. And similarly, the DEWS-II report has simplified the dry eye disease diagnostic criteria into positive symptom score plus any one positive sign. And of the positive sign, they have identified three, that is either an unstable tear film, either a hyperosmolar tear, or if there is epithelial or ocular surface damage. So there are many questionnaires that are used to assess the dry eye disease symptoms. Two popular ones, I'll just highlight two popular ones. One is the OSDI. Because OSDI, this actually has, besides measuring the severity of the symptoms, it has questions that are related to health-related quality of life. And that is by if the symptoms worsen on visual tasks, and how does the environment affect the vision. So this is a very important concept and important part of OSDI, which the other questionnaires do not have. The second is the DEQ-5. Now, DEQ-5 does not have any health-related quality of life, but it focuses on the symptoms and measures symptoms on three domains. One is the frequency, severity, and very important on diurnal variation. It is known that dry eye disease worsens as the day progresses. So it has specific questions asking the patient if the severity of dry eye is worse at night just before going to sleep. So we did a small study out here to see which was better in the Indian context. The OSDI, of course, because the health-related quality of life is associated to the lifestyle of the individual. So certain questions related to driving at night, working with computers and ATMs may not be there in the general population, but be restricted to a certain groups. So these questions go unanswered. So the health-related quality of life measurement in Indian context may not be that useful. But the DEQ-5, that does not measure the health-related quality of life. So that is a negative aspect. So in particular groups, you will not be able to assess how environment or the visual tasks are affecting the vision. We found that in our study that milder symptoms were better picked up by DEQ-5, the dry eye questionnaire 5, rather than the OSDI. So then we come to the signs. So once we establish if the OSDI is more than 13 or DEQ-5 score is more than 6, that means they are symptom positive. So once they are symptom positive, the second thing comes to sign positive. And these are the three signs that are there. We just need to have one abnormal sign. So tear film breakup time is a very common thing that we can do in our OPDs, and it has you can use the fluorescein, or nowadays you have the non-invasive automated ones, which gives you a very nice printout. So this is the fluorescein. So you instill fluorescein, and then you ask the patient to blink, and then you look for the first random spot. So if you look at my arrow, the random spot, this is the first random spot that is there. So you take this reading 3 times, and then if the recording is, if the tear film breaks up before 10 seconds, then it's an abnormal one. So it has to be random. See, now here the break is happening at a different place. So this randomization is there. And of course, now there are different concepts also to that, but this is how a fluorescent TBUT should be done. Then we have the ocular surface staining. We have 3 stains. One is the fluorescent stain, the rose Bengal stain, and the Lissamine green. Nowadays, we use less of the rose Bengal because it stings on installation, preferring the Lissamine green. But fluorescent itself can do the job. It can stain the cornea and conjunctiva, provided it has a yellow or orange filter in the objective. Otherwise, the conjunctival staining seen by fluorescent is not that effective, not that great. And so Lissamine stains it better. So if you don't have a yellow filter, then you can use both fluorescent or Lissamine green. Use them both together. Lissamine for the conjunctiva and fluorescent for the cornea. And this is how it appears. So if you see the staining here, it is much, much better with the Lissamine green rather than the fluorescent. And then you need to grade it. The DEWS 2 has made it very, very simple. It has made it simple in the sense that if you have 5 spots in the cornea, 5 spots or more, it is positive sign. And if the symptoms are positive, then you have a dry eye diagnosis made. Or if there are 12 conjunctival spots. So this is a very, very simplified form, and which anybody can do. But if one wants to grade it into mild, moderate, or severity, then there are different scales, either the Oxford scale or the Sjogren syndrome for international registry. But the DEWS 2 can perform very well in a general clinic. One thing that was highlighted in the previous is the lid wiper epitheliopathy, along with positive staining on the cornea and conjunctiva. Even if the lid margin is stained, like in this case, and in this case, then also it is a sign of dry eye disease. So this is a new concept in DEWS 2. Then tear osmolarity, this is considered to be a gold standard, but we now have a point of care mechanism, but it is pretty expensive. But people who can do it, this is also a very good test. So once you have established dry eye disease, that this patient has dry eye disease, you need to subtype it. And the DEWS 2 has subtyped it into 3 broad areas. One is the aqueous deficient dry eye disease, the evaporative dry eye disease, and other states. This other states is the preclinical state where you may have symptom positive, but signs are negative, or you may have symptom negative, but signs are positive. A new concept introduced, as Dr. Deepshika had elaborated, is neuropathic pain, where you don't have signs, but patient is very symptomatic. So tear film height is nowadays, yeah, I can hear the buzzer. So I'll try to finish it in time. So the tear film height is something that can be measured in the slit lamp, or you can have it in the OCT, or you can have it in the automated machines. The other is Shermer's test. So the Shermer's test can also be done, and we all are familiar with this. You can either do the Shermer's test 1 without anesthesia. If there is severe ocular surface damage, you can use a Paracane to do Shermer's test 1 with anesthesia. Then meibomian gland dysfunction is a very common thing, and there are some lid margin signs like capping or presence of telangiectasia or anterior shifting of the Mars line. And if you have, or there is irregular eyelid margin. So if you have a score more than 2 or more, it is positive for meibomian gland dysfunction, or the expressibility and the quality of meibum. So you can either have a clear meibum, you can have a cloudy meibum, or in very severe grade, you may have dry toothpaste like meibum out here. Or you can do a meibography by doing infrared photography. And here you can see how the meibomian glands are delineated well, but there is extensive dropout in this patient, which is clearly picked up by the meibography. So in the sequence of tests, we usually go for least to the most invasive so that we don't disturb the ocular surface milieu much. Then there are other tests you can do, like X-rays, then your serum assessment of antibody levels to rule out rheumatoid arthritis or Sjogren's disease, or you can do a buccal mucosa to establish Sjogren's disease. And there are some point of care diagnostics currently not very widely used, like MMP9, which can also be used to assess the inflammation level of inflammation in dry eye disease. So two examples that I would like to highlight. One is a 44-year-old bank manager who complained of tiredness, pain, ache, occasional burning, occasional foreign body sensation, more so at the end of the day. And when we examined her, we found that she has significant OSDI, reduced tear film, but TBUT, normal tear film secretion, but she had significant meibomian gland disease. So this is a case of evaporative dry eye due to MGD. And this is a second patient who was a chronic patient of allergic chronic sinusitis, on chronic use of antihistaminic tablets and inhalation steroids. And when we examined him, we found that he had significant symptoms. TBUT was less, Shermer's was less, and there was significant staining of the ocular surface, along with lid margin viper epitheliopathy, more in the right eye. So this is a case of aqueous deficient dry eye disease, probably because of chronic allergy and use of allergy mechanisms. So with this, I would like to finish the talk, and I would like to thank the organizers for giving us an opportunity to share our experience in dry eye disease.